Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to be showing you how to access your website that you've created with either IIS or the Uni server, and I have done tutorials on these in other videos, so if you're not sure, just go back and have a look at those. Okay, so first of all we're going to want to set our computer up so people can access it from outside. So first of all we're going to want to go into, if you've got Windows, Control Panel, and then down here somewhere you should see Windows Firewall, and this applies for Windows XP, Vista 7 and Windows Server editions. So we're just going to go into Windows Firewall. And okay, what we want to do now is let people from outside our computer actually access a certain port on our computer so they can get into our website. And the web servers usually host a website on port 80, so we're going to enable that. Okay, and now on Windows XP, you should be able to go into, I think it's turn Windows Firewall on or off or something like that. Oh no, it should be this setting here, and it'll allow you to add a new port down here, but in Windows 7 it only allows you to add another program. We don't want that, so we're going to go cancel on there, and we're going to want to go to advanced settings if you've got Windows 7 or Windows Vista. Okay, now in here you'll see a whole list of ports and programs that are actually allowed access at the moment. So we're going to go to inbound rules because we want people to access them from the outside. And as you can see here, there's a lot of rules that have already been set up, and these ones with the ticks are allowed access. And over here, if you scroll along, you've got the different ports that they're accessible on. Okay, but we're going to want to add a new rule, so just go back here, add new rule, and only do this if you're certain you actually want to host a website from your computer. Okay, so we're going to go add new port, and then next, and we'll just leave these settings as is, and in here you're just going to type port 80, so just 80, and then next, and you want to allow the connection. But of course you can always use allow the connection if it is secure, but this requires more setup with your web server and your computer, so we'll just leave it as allow the connection. And we'll leave all of these ticked so everyone can access it. And just name it whatever you want to name, so it could be HTTP or website or whatever you want to name it. And then just click finish. But I've already got it set up, so I'm just going to get out of this. Okay, and as you can see, I've already got my HTTP port allowed through the firewall, as you can see there, port 80. So once that's done, you're going to get out of that, and then get out of that as well. And if you've got a cable connection or a modem connection, or ADSL or a T1 connection, you've obviously got a modem and or a router. So we're going to want to access that and allow people to access your computer through the internet. Okay, so there is different ways of getting into your router or modem, and normally it's through the web interface, and it could be anything from 192.168.0.1, or in my case it's .2.1 at the end. So I'm just going to access that. Normally it'll ask you for a password and username. This should be in the documentation that came with your router. Oh god, I forgot my password. Okay, so once that's in, just access it. Okay, and now I've got an SMC Networks modem router, and this is different on a few models and can change. So I'm just going to go into Firewall, and down here you can see I've got port forwarding, which is what we want to do, and this allows you to forward access from the internet to local ports on your computer, as you can see here. So people on the outside, the public port, they're going to access port 80, and my router is allowing it to send it to port 80 on the computer. Okay, on some routers this may be different. It could be called a virtual server, but there's a few websites online where you can find information on how to do it for your current modem or router. But for this one, we're just going to set up a port forward to 80. So to do that, you're going to need the computer IP address, which will be the IP address of your network card, which I covered in one of my previous tutorials. But if you didn't watch that, I'll just show you quickly. If you want to find the current IP address of your system, just go into CMD, and you're going to want to type ipconfig/all, just to be sure. And under your default network card, which should be the local area connection, you should see under IPv4 address, oh no, oh yeah, IPv4 address, that's your IP address that you should be forwarding it to. So in my case it's 192.168.2.2. So we get out of that. Okay, so now I'm going to set it up. That's my local IP address. We'll just leave remote IP address blank. And the local port that we're trying to forward it to is 80, the web port. And because there's no other ports that we're running it on, we'll just put 80 there again. And if it does ask for public ports and doesn't automatically put them in, just type 80 into those as well. Okay, now once that's done, click add, or whatever your router wants you to do. And as you can see, I've got 2 entries in there now, because I've already set one up beforehand, so I'm just going to delete one of those. Okay, but now that's done, so theoretically we should be able to access it from the outside, but I'll show you that in a sec. Okay, so the next step, we're going to need to find our current external IP address, which is the IP address others would see. Okay, so in my case it's this number here, that's my IP address, and this is a static IP address, which means this has been set by my ISP and it doesn't change no matter how many times I connect to the internet. Some of you may have a dynamic IP, which means it's basically an IP that changes periodically and is always different. There's not a high probability of getting the same one. So we'll talk about that later, but for now I'm just going to show you how to access my website using my IP address. Okay, now normally if you type in your own IP address and you've set up all the port forwards and the firewall, I'll show you here, 89.163.150. This will automatically send you to your router if you access it from your own computer. So to get around that, just click cancel. We're just going to go to a proxy website. So in my case, I'm just going to go to hidemyass.com. Okay, and from here, you just go down, delete that, and we'll just type in 203.89, or just type in your IP address, and go to that. And then this should bring up the website you've started on either your IIS server or your Apache server, the Uni server. It's taking a while. This will be faster if you're doing it off someone else's computer. And there's my website, which is the Hellhound tech site. And of course you'll have all this up here, but we don't have to worry about that at the moment, we're just making sure it works. Now that's accessible. Okay, and now if you don't want to use your IP address, as it's not very pretty, just get out of that. Okay, now we're going to use a site called noip.com, which basically allows you to set a name to your IP address, a free name to your IP address. The service is free, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're just going to log in, just register a new account. It's free and simple. Just type in my password and log in. Okay, now once you're in here, you're going to want to go to add a host. Okay, now under here you've got a series of different, let's say, domain names. Now under here, under the enhanced domains, these aren't free. So those ones up there you have to pay a small fee for, but for this tutorial we're just going to go down to the free domains. And there's a lot down here that you can choose from, so I'm just going to go to zap2.org. And now in here you're going to want to add in just a name of your choice that people can use to access your site. So I'm just going to call it Hellhound. Okay, so now my address that will forward to my IP will be hellhound.zap2.org. Okay, now for the host type, you're just going to leave DNS host A selected, and for your IP address, it will automatically select it, which is quite handy. So you don't have to find anything out or type it in. So just leave that as is, and then just leave everything else and go create host. Oh, okay, that's already taken. I'll try this one. Okay, Hellhound admin. Leave it the same as everything else and create host. Okay, now Hellhound admin will now link up straight to my IP address. So anyone that tries to access this will be sent to the page that this was accessing. Okay, now if you have a dynamic IP address, which means it changes all the time, you're going to want to download one of their programs that will allow it to change by itself, but it'll still be hooked up to this website address. So to do that, you're going to want to go to noip.com at the top here, return to noip.com. We'll wait for this to load. And we're just going to download a program, it's in the download sections here. Okay, it's a dynamic update client. All this does is it updates your IP address and it hooks it up to the website you've already created in your hosts. Okay, so you select your operating system, whatever you're using. For us, I'm going to use Windows. And download. I'm just going to run that. You're better off to save it. Okay, now once that downloads to wherever you've saved it, just go ahead, this is it here, just go ahead and open it up, and we're just going to install this. And that's done. It should come up with your information about it. You can read through that if you want, but it's pretty straightforward, it just tells you what it does. Okay, now here you're going to want to enter your email address and password that you signed up to the website with. So in my case it's hellhoundadmin at hellhound.co.nz, and just enter your password in down here. Okay, now this will just take a while to update, and then it'll bring up all the hosts you've set up, hopefully. Oh, I entered it wrong. There we go, that's the problem. Okay, so once this is loaded properly, it'll bring up all the hosts you've set up. So in my case it's hellhoundadmin.zap2.org, and always make sure you've ticked it so it updates it to your current IP address. And here you should you'll see a different IP address every time if you've got a dynamic IP address, and this is basically for you guys, so it does update all the time, otherwise you probably won't need this. Okay, now give that about a couple of seconds to set up. If you've got a dynamic IP address, you can exit that, it'll just minimize to the tray down here. And now we're just going to test that to see if it works. So I'm just going to go back to hidemyass.com. Okay, now down here we're going to type in the new host address we've just set up. And we'll see if this works. Oh, don't want to be accessing someone else's site. And hide my ass. Now if you set this up right, it should go straight to where your IP address, where your current website is hosted on your computer. If not, if it's not working, give it a few more minutes to just load properly. And there we go, it works. And it's come up with the actual address and it hasn't sent it straight back to the IP address. And that's basically it. I'm also going to show you how to use your own domain name that you've actually paid for through a domain host, but I'll put that in another tutorial, as this is probably going over a bit over time, so I'll put that in part 2 of this tutorial. Feel free to actually log onto our website, which isn't at this address, it's at hellhound.co.nz, which you'll find at the bottom of the videos, and feel free to ask any questions and help others.